Andres, welcome to Mexico. Jonas,
Thank you.
well, I love the Pixar movies, but one of the things that I love more is the fun facts. I try to find something when I see the movie, but I don't see nothing. Maybe in the classroom, the map.
You're talking about like inside jokes and things.
Yeah.
We have 3 characters from Ratatouille that show up in the film. You
Where?
probably saw one.
Where?
Remy.
Has everyone seen the movie?
Yes, yes.
At the very beginning, as Riley is jumping around with the lava,
Okay.
on the table are 2 magazines that feature.
It's a cooking magazine with
Cousteau.
Colette and Cousteau
Yeah.
from Ratatouille.
Okay.
Yeah. There are 3 shots with the Pizza Planet truck in it. I'm not going to tell you where they are. It's very hard. Yeah.
But here's
There's a
one.
lot of stuff like that.
If you look close in one of the memories where Riley and Mom were walking down the street,
Yes.
she says, "What was your favorite part of the trip?" And Riley says, "I remember like the part with the dinosaur. You remember the car backs up? Those dinosaurs may or may not be characters from our next movie,
Okay.
The Good
The
Dinosaurs."
dinosaur. The A113, no?
That's there.
That's there.
Okay.
That one's really obvious when you see it. You're like, whoa, how did I miss that? But there's so much going on emotionally at the time that you don't really pay attention to it.
Okay,
It's
thank
all
you.
in there.
Okay.
Don't worry.
I think that Inside Out, next to Up, is one of the most deep and mature movies that you've done, and you've been involved in both of them. It's not as much as kid-friendly as others have been because it's kind of deeper. So, is it hard for you to deal with a theme that could be a lot more mature in the movie, but that you have to make it for kids to enjoy it?
Well, to be honest, we're not making the movies for kids. We're making for us. We know kids are going to watch them, but we don't talk down to kids, and I don't think we do this on any of the films. We expect kids to figure it out, and they do. In this film, it's been really fun watching the movie with even very little kids, and they get everything. I think emotions are really the first language that children learn. Before they even learn how to speak, they understand emotion. They can understand when, my wife and I were having a fight. My son was 9 months and he got upset. He didn't understand we were arguing about the checkbook, but he knows that we're upset. He knows that we're happy. He mimics, even babies when they are first born, if one baby cries, another baby will start to cry sympathetically. So I think there's a connection that kids feel with this film that might surprise you how quickly they seem to get and understand what we're talking about.
But because there are a lot of things about psychology and deep thought, and that's kind of...
Well, that's a good point, and I think this is true of this film and many of the other Pixar films as well, that there are multiple levels. So, the things that you see in the film, a 4-year-old will see it quite differently. They seem to really enjoy it. They see different things in it. You had the example of the jokes, the facts and opinions thing.
Yeah, my kids are young. I have a 9-year-old now, a 7-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And so I've used them along the way to make sure that we weren't getting too esoteric, but that they would read it. And I think the movies that I loved growing up, like Dumbo, say, or Bambi, right? I saw those very differently as a kid than I do now. So I hope Inside Out is one of those films. And it's funny, my son, who's 3, loved the movie. He's seen it twice, and he talks about it, and he plays anger, but he doesn't understand, to your point, maybe all the emotional
Passing
depth.
childhood. And
Right, but he does get it. And one thing that made me laugh, I was telling Pete, there's a joke in the film where Bing Bong knocks over the facts and opinions. There's a box of facts and opinions. He says, "Don't worry about that. It happens all the time." All the adults laugh at that. And my son laughed really hard at that. And I thought, there's no way he doesn't understand that. And then it dawned on me, he just likes things when they spill. To him, it's like a spill milk gag or something. He'll see that very differently when he's 16. Right?
Yeah.
He'll say, oh,
Yeah,
now I get it.
Thank you. Asking Spanish, please. Más allá de lo obvio de tristeza y felicidad, todas las emociones pasan por todas las emociones. Entonces, complementando un poco con esta cuestión psicológica, supongo que hubo un estudio en el que se estuvieron basando para llegar a este punto, incluso en la cuestión de los colores, porque vemos a Felicidad, que es la única que tiene 2 colores, o 3 incluso, y brilla por sobre los demás personajes.
I would like to delve a little bit beyond what is the emotions. I know there's a psychology-based situation. There were studies that you base this on, but I'm curious about knowing even about the colors that you portray in each of them. Like, let's say Joy, she has maybe 2 or 3 colors and she shines. So can you speak a little bit about this, about the particular emotions?
Yeah. Everything that we do has an intended meaning. With Joy, she is the character that is on screen the most and has the widest breadth of the way she portrays, she has the widest breadth of emotion. So I think that's reflected in her design, whereas Sadness is all kind of shades of blue. Joy has a wide diversity of color to show that she's capable of all these different emotions. We did kind of like that her blue hair sort of matches to Sadness. There's a little connection there, a little of what's going to come. So some of the characters, like Anger, obviously you feel red with Anger, that's pretty obvious. Joy as gold and happy, that felt pretty obvious. Blue for Sadness. Fear was kind of, that was the color left over. Purple. So, we designed them as a group. We wanted them to look good all together. So I don't know that anybody feels purple with fear, but
you can help. You guys can all help us. I'm trying to campaign to make that equal fear. So someday people are, I'm terrified. I'm purple with fear. Yeah. So I'm trying to get that to spread.
You're purple pencils.
Yeah. Don't be purple.
At first I asked about the all emotions, feels all emotions. So it was a little bit difficult.
Well, we made it so that they were only their emotion. They only said angry things or fearful things or whatever. But it got kind of like playing one note over and over on the piano. You kind of felt like, okay, I get it. It doesn't have the diversity that we really need to tell a full story. So the way we ended up thinking of them, this came from the research, each emotion in real life has a trigger, has a job. So fear is about uncertainty. If there's something you've never seen before, it's likely to trigger fear just to keep you safe. Disgust is about purity, keeping you from being poisoned. And that goes for physical or social things. So everybody has a job, and that's the way we ended up thinking of them as characters. They're basically people that have a tendency to lean towards what their job is, anger, fear, whatever. And they want to do a good job at whatever it is they're doing. So, of course, they may disagree amongst each other as to the best way that they think that should be done, but that's part of the fun.
Thank you.
So, how did Ronaldo del Carmen came to the process? How did you, how did you come to this decision to use 2 directors?
Well,
question.
you want to go ahead?
Well, yeah, Ronnie, he's an amazing visual storyteller, and he's just an emotional artist. And I mean that in a good way. He can channel, he's just very sensitive. His drawings, he can capture the entire feeling of a movie in one drawing. And he did that with us on Up, and he's just a great muse, I think, for Pete. And so he was the head of story on Up, and he helped really craft the beginning of that movie, which obviously was emotional. So when we started this idea, we had him with us right as you pitched it, right after me, I think. And he just, I don't know, he had just such a strong vision in helping craft the story reels. Obviously Pete's the director, but we thought he had such an impact that we wanted to give him a little more, call him co-director, because he's just such a great shepherd. And I think almost like a watchdog of making sure that the theme of the movie didn't get too changed as we evolved it over the years. So he just had great impact on the film.
The title co-director is kind of confusing for people sometimes because the structure is such as it is still, there's the director. The co-director usually owns kind of some part within the film. Like in the case of Lee Unkrich, he was co-director with me on Monsters, Inc. He really supervised the cinematography and the cutting.
Yeah.
Ronnie, in this case, was really involved in the writing and the storyboarding, so the story process. When it came to production, I ran that, but he really contributed a lot of visual ideas.
Okay.
He's a talented dude.
Yeah, he is.
Hello, my name is Joan. Welcome to Mexico.
Thank you.
I am from Disney Fan Magazine.
Thank you.
And my question in Spanish, okay?
Yeah.
Bueno, creo que han hecho sin lugar a duda, hemos conocido 5 magníficas emociones dentro de la película, pero alguna que quizás haya faltado o que les hubiera gustado introducir dentro de esta y no fue posible poder ponerla?
Okay, my question is, I have no doubt, and I believe that these 5 emotions are perfectly portrayed in the film, but I'm asking myself if there was one that maybe you couldn't make fit or you left out. Can you maybe speak about it?
27.
27, wow. That's you're a woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
We had, let's see, in earlier versions we had Pride.
Pride is a good one.
And he came in and he had his upturned nose and he was like, "Oh, Joy, I noticed no one applauded when I walked in the room. Could you do something about that?"
He had a tie, ascot tie.
Yeah, thought very highly of himself. You know. And then we had Schadenfreude, who was basically, he took delight in other people's pain, you know. Spoke with a German accent. But we quickly realized that if you really got everybody in there, it would be so crowded. It's really hard to keep track of everybody. Wait a minute, who's that? And what does that person do? So 5 seemed like a good manageable number, and we weeded out the other guys. Even, I think we mentioned, amongst science, there's no real consensus how many emotions there are, and I think different scientists look at different criteria for measuring a distinction between the two. I was just reading something about last year, the University of Glasgow said that if you put, like, depending, I'm not even sure how they measured this, but like temperature, heart rate, they said disgust and anger are kind of the same. Like, that seems weird to me, they seem very different. But in terms of measurable, like observable facts, they were kind of lumping those two together. So we had to make it up somewhere along the way. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for dyeing your hair blue.
It was completely on purpose. Jonas, thank you so very much for sharing this moment with us. And the question is, how would you like for people to receive this movie? Because at first glance, you may think that Riley is not the main character because everything just happens with joy and sadness and their journey to return to headwaters. But in a metaphorical level, it's like you let go of yourself and you let emotions control you sometimes. So how would you like this story to be received by people?
I always look at Joy as the main character. The world inside the mind seemed the most interesting, and she goes through the biggest change, I think, of anyone in the film. But structurally, as we would work, we would strip out all the Riley and her parents' beats, and then we'd strip out all the joy and sadness relationship beats, and we tried to shuffle them together in ways that affect each other. So as Riley turns her back on her friends, that is what causes the island to crumble, and now Joy has to go around, and you know, all these sort of interrelated things. It was quite complex to work out. All told, in the end, of course, a big emotional punchline is that Joy, at the end, is able to go up to headquarters and push sadness forward, as opposed to the beginning of the film where she's pushing her away. And that then, of course, affects Riley's story, and she reconnects with her parents. So through the whole film, she's been separating from them and drifting away. So those two are really pretty linked together, those actions, which was difficult to do, and I'm proud of the job that everybody did weaving these two stories together.
And it was, you say that, Ronnie did a drawing once, I remember, just a little simple drawing, and it says Act 1, and it's Joy at the console with her hand like this, and sadness, like, you know, and it says Act 3, and she's pushing her toward it. But there's the movie, you know, that little drawing.
All right, thank you. Welcome to Mexico again.
Thank you.
I would like to know, being child this day is quite different back in the past, because everything that's around them is quite different, the technology and all. Is it difficult to speak to the child right now, to impress them? And in regard of that, what the animation should do for continue keeping fighting and tell to the children that they should be children?
It's a great topic. I mean,
it is.
I mean,
how long do we have?
How long?
I think ultimately children, I don't think this changes really fundamentally through time. That what we really crave is connection, right? And that's the big problem, difficulty rather, in growing up, is finding your tribe. You know, that's the point at which family you're given, you're born into family. But at a certain point, you have to go find your own new family, you know, your friends. And that is what stresses you out, and that's what makes people insecure, and that's what makes growing up so hard. So I think even though we have all these electronic devices, we're still after the same thing. We want connection with other people. We want to talk to them. We want to relate to them and feel loved and known by people. So even though there's new technology, I think we're kind of fundamentally after the same thing.
Yeah, and I think we think it's worse than it is. I mean, like my kids are born into the iPhone world. I didn't have that, but I was born into like Atari, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And my parents probably didn't want me doing that. My parents are born into the TV, you know. So there's always been some sort of torque that parents have had to provide so that you remember to go outside and not just watch TV or sit in front of your computer or type or on your phone or whatever it is. I think that's just part of parenting and growing up, and I bet it goes back well before any of us were here.
Yeah.
But I think there are more things, and there's just different challenges, and but we find, I think at Pixar, I mean, we're pretty old school. Being as high tech as we are, we sort of like to shut things down and just think about character and story. And I'm really happy to say that, like, you know, the kids that we show it to and so far seem to really respond to it. I think they crave that. I think they even maybe more now, right? Maybe now that there's more white noise, kids and audiences crave just something simple and truthful and relatable. Anyway, that's what I'm going for, you know. Thank you.
Bueno, ¿qué tan difícil fue hacer esta película? Y una que integra muchos elementos muy interesantes, como es la emoción y capta a niños y a grandes. ¿Qué tan difícil fue empatar eso, que niños traídos y adultos también lo disfrutemos?
Well, I guess you have difficulties and you have different elements that you have to deal with in here, such as the different emotions. And I'm asking myself, how difficult is it to be appealing to the young people, to the children, as well as to the grown-ups?
I think there again, we sort of talked about this, not really aiming for kids. You know, I think this is me just analyzing off the top of my head now. There are inherent elements in computer animation that are inherently appealing to kids, or at least the way we use them. You know, bright colors, simplified shapes, those kind of things that are just kind of part of who we are and what we are looking for in the design. So when we're really thinking about story and content, I'm not really thinking about kids so much as I am adults, you know, and what is there ultimately beyond the frosting on the top? What's the cake underneath? You know, what's the stuff that's going to sustain you, that's going to feed you, and that even after you leave the theater, you continue to think about? That's fundamental. Then as we go along, we do work in layers. You know, we think later on through, we're like, you know, we need more physical comedy. So we do a whole pass-through where we have all the story people look at every beat. And is there an opportunity for somebody to get hit or fall down or whatever? Something that's hopefully inherent to the story, that's not too gratuitous, just for, you know. And then, you know, we might, on this film, I had everybody go through and do, I guess I would call an intellectual pass, like really taking advantage of the mind world. And that's where, like, the facts and opinions joke came from, or deja vu, like all these things kids will never get, you know, but adults do. So you have these various layers that we work, and I think that's been our process since Toy Story.
Yeah, and I think since Toy Story, I mean, all of our movies, we like to think have multiple layers. I mean, even Cars, right, which arguably is the one film that's in Cars 2 sort of most for kids. Right? Well, I worked on Cars, and one of the things I remember, John Lasseter directed that film. And John Lasseter is the busiest person I've ever known. Right? Every single second of his day is scheduled. And at the end of the day, my kids see Cars as fun with cars and trucks, and they talk and they have races, and one wins and one loses, and it's fun. But what Cars is really about is when your life's so busy that you can't even have time to do anything other than work, and every single second of your day is scheduled. That's a race car trying to shave a fraction of a second off of every lap that then is forced to slow down. Well, it came from John. I mean, all these movies are self-portraits. If you know all these guys, I mean, they're all self-portraits. I think that's a very sophisticated layer to what seems on the surface as a fun movie, but when you see it again, I mean, Toy Story, I don't think my kids see Toy Story as a movie that's about the fear of being replaced,
jealousy,
like that's kind of a deeper well, and you don't have to see it that way to have the film work, right? I mean, all the movies that I've loved are always, you know, George Lucas's first Star Wars is about being bored in Modesto in a farm town that he can't get out of. And he dramatized that in a science fiction epic. That's cool. When I was 6, I didn't get that.
Yeah.
I wanted to see Han Solo fly a ship. You know. So anyway, we like to have these conversations and think, what's in it for everybody on that level.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hola, Vanessa Maldonado de Pro. A nivel tecnológico, un poco más técnico, ¿cuáles son esas novedades que se utilizaron para la realización de esta cinta que quizá diferencian de lo que han venido realizando o dan continuidad a lo que han sido las recientes películas a nivel más tecnológico, herramientas quizá?
Well, her question has to do with the technology level, technological level. She's wondering which are the novelties that were used in this film that maybe make a difference compared to the recent films, or maybe provide continuity to them, or maybe like the tools. But this is specifically having to do with the technology level.
It's an interesting movie on that level because there was no real new, it's not like we needed to create fur for the first time or water. We were after a different look, a look that you would describe sometimes as energy, and so, like the characters are made up of roiling particles, especially joy. So one of the pieces of technology, their feelings, right? And so that's an abstraction that's hard for computer scientists to chase down. But they did it by coming up with this technology where the characters are actually kind of filled with fog, I guess, right? Some atmosphere, so light can diffuse them. You can even see through her wrist and fingers in certain shots.
But,
Not in that poster, but in real life. But they're also, she's made up these millions of little particles that are like sequins, like on a dress, that always know where the camera is. So they always, no matter where she moves, they rotate to face the camera, so they catch light, and so that's how you get this illuminated texture. It almost looks like champagne bubbles or something.
It's like this kind of thing.
It knows
where
where the camera
it's
is.
actually flat, but
So that's a very specific piece of technology that we chased down for the look of this. And I don't know, it'll probably be used in some other way later.
Probably.
But we were very excited about that. The other thing I'll say is our tools at Pixar and our medium is really good at replicating reality. So when we did Ratatouille, we wanted the wine glasses to refract light exactly as they would in the tool set. This is a very complex thing to do in the computer, and drop shadows when you put things down and so forth. All that is sort of physically based. Well, we were more interested in caricature, in a simple drawing where something can look more like the real thing than a photograph in a way, if that makes sense. So you were after really simple cartoony shapes, and we had to kind of break our technology a little bit to get more of a hand-drawn, cartoony feel, if that makes sense. It's a little hard to explain because it's not...
kind of going off of Chuck Jones,
Yeah.
Avery, a lot of the cartoons that we grew up loving.
Even in the lighting, we looked at like Fantasia and how light would crawl and dissolve away from things, and like the opening shots. We wanted that feel of a Disney movie in the 40s, So we really pushed the technology, and John Lasseter has always said that at Pixar, the technology challenges the art, but the art, actually it's the other way around, isn't it? The art challenges the technology, and the technology inspires the art. So you have this cyclical sort of feedback between computer science and art, and that is really what makes Pixar Pixar.
Thank you.
Hola,
Hola.
Carlos Aguillón de Newsline Report. Tomando en cuenta la forma de consumir los contenidos actualmente, que la audiencia ha cambiado mucho durante los últimos 10 años, ¿qué tan difícil es sorprender a un niño actualmente con algo animado? ¿Y cómo ven también el producto latino, lo que se está generando con algunas casas productoras?
Considering how people actually consume content nowadays, especially like 10-year-old kids that are changing so much and have these changes all the time, how do you think it's different now to be able to surprise them nowadays with animation? And as well, I would like to know your opinion about what the Latin market is doing about this.
Can you speak just a little more about what you mean by consuming
¿Puedes
content?
ahondar un poquito en lo del consumo de los contenidos?
La oferta, hay más plataformas digitales, la llegada de las plataformas digitales,
About
la
the
forma de
digital
consumir el
platforms,
contenido.
so the way
Phones,
actually
movies.
people
exacto.
uses the content
Oh, it's like
that they
disposable
have, like
kind of thing? Is that
como las cosas, por ejemplo, que son como
Netflix.
desechables,
Netflix,
or no,
yeah.
like
No,
Netflix.
the amount of
Yeah.
Yes, the amount
how they
offer.
consume it.
Yeah.
Yes, the way they
Ah.
consume it.
Well, I think...
It's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. And
I mean, I watch my daughter, who's now, when she's doing her homework, she is texting a friend, watching a movie, and doing her homework at the same time, allegedly. I don't know if she's actually, she's getting good grades, so I don't know. It is very multitasking. It kind of drives me bonkers because, there are specific points at every moment in the film that I'm hoping people are looking and really completely absorbed in the film. So I can't believe that someone who's doing this at the same time is really absorbed in the film in the same way.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I can whine till the cows come home and it's not going to do anything.
Well, I look at it, it's a bit of a blessing and a curse creatively. A blessing in that there's more platforms, there's more ways to see things, right? So that gives us more opportunities to get things out. And Netflix, I watch half of the things I watch on Netflix and on my iPad and things. And that's cool. So I can watch Breaking Bad or Walking Dead and I can sit and watch the whole thing, right? With headphones on. As a film producer, it's heartbreaking, on the other hand, to think that someone will watch Inside Out like this, and look around, because we made it in a dark room in a theater. We're moviegoers, and so we aim for that, but yet we understand that the world's changing. And so, I don't know, we just try to balance it. We try to focus on what we do. We make films, and we try to make the best film we can make, and then we work really hard to make it hold up on platform. One thing we do, we take Inside Out, and we actually recolor time the whole thing, like the recolor time negative, so that it works on the Apple format, so that the color's balanced, so it's not just a transfer, because we know people will watch it that way. So we make sure the compression works and all that. So we do a lot of work to make it work that way, but we secretly hope people go to the theater to see it and then watch it a million times. And how Latin countries are doing, it feels like it's pretty impressive just to be down here. It feels like it's pretty cutting edge and almost feels like a step ahead of even where we were, in the States a little bit. And I know the Disney teams down here are doing a ton to just make things accessible. So that's, again, it's a bit of a balance. It's access, and that's awesome, but